Good afternoon. My name is Danny Salerno. I'm an Alderman at large here in the city of New Britain, Connecticut. I'm a lifetime resident. Spent most of my life here, though I've lived elsewhere as well. I've been elected as a Democrat, endorsed by the Republican Town Committee here in the city. This is my third term as Alderman at large, and what that means is I am citywide in terms of the electoral process. And I will be running for my fourth term this November 2019. Well, I think I would start out by saying it's a town mentality very often within a city. That it's not a large city. There are no large cities in the state of Connecticut, which actually should be attractive from my standpoint. Yet you can get the urban flavor of whatever you determine that to be. New Britain has a predominantly large residential community. It's very small in size. It's only 13.3 square miles, and it's fairly densely populated, about 73,000 people. I think there are so many other things I could say about how you describe a city. It has a working class, blue collar history, and I believe a blue collar mentality, a set of values, a set of ethics that goes along with that hard scrabble working class community. Even today, though most of the old manufacturing organizations and businesses have left, not the fault of the city, but the change in suburbia, the expansion of suburbia were many, and globalization, which actually impacted a lot of the manufacturing and industrial sectors. I think it's a very livable community, and I think that that's part of its charm, if you will. We probably have more parks proportionate to the square mile indicators than most cities and towns in the state of Connecticut, or for that matter, even in the United States. We have a tremendous park and recreation program. We have a school system of 10,000 students with 6 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, and only 1 high school, which tends to be very much the, if you will, the buzz of the city very often. It has about 26 to 2,800 students with a very diverse population, a high Latino population in the city, but we probably speak over 30 languages in the school system alone. And that kind of gives us sort of the flavor of what the community is like. Well, I think there are probably several that always seem to stick in people's minds. The city, first of all, the city was cut in half by an expressway and a highway that I don't even like to talk about so much because it was literally 50 years ago. And so, frankly, the whining and the complaining about that doesn't do the city's progress justice. But it's been hanging over people's heads for several decades. This caused a disruption in the neighborhoods. It displaced a lot of neighborhoods and people in those neighborhoods over the course of time. And as it turned out, it wasn't as successful in terms of commerce as it was played out to be. But the constant going back to the history of that experience in the mid-1970s really is no excuse for developing the economic approach to the city over the course of time. The other stereotypes, I think, again, is the thought that it's a very urban jungle experience, that it's infested with crime or other problems that bring on that social urban areas might be constituted to exist in their community. And I think it's the farthest thing from the truth. We probably are the safest city in the state of Connecticut by almost any uniform crime report indicators or data in any level, literally from homicide all the way down to breaking and entering. Certainly that happens. It happens in a community that's surrounded by other cities within close proximity. I think that's a big stereotype. I think the education system gets stereotypically undermined. My children attended the school system here in the city, graduated from New Britain High School, moved on. One is an attorney, and for IBM. Another works for a consultant firm and has her own startup and does a whole variety of things. And they're 26 and 31, and they are byproducts not just of the school system but of this community. And so I think that you can easily stereotype when you have issues or problems in a school district. Those are, I think, nothing to do in the city, which is really, that's usually the hue and cry. Well, there's nothing to do. And it's true, we probably don't have a lot of the more modern facilities that other communities surrounding might have. But we're also not that affluent. And we're a poor community from that standpoint, and that's a stark reality. The outmigration of businesses and industry 30 years ago or 40 years ago certainly helped contribute to that, at least that impression. But we have a world-class museum of art here in the city. We have an incredible amount of local theater opportunities, again, the parks and recreation aspects. There are at least 14 to 16 or more different establishments with every ethnic imaginable food serving, from Thai to Chinese to Puerto Rican specifically to Latino, Italian, Polish. We have a little Poland that runs up Broad Street, for example. That is, it will have in June 2nd, for example, of this year, 2019, there'll be the Polish Festival, which literally will draw somewhere in the vicinity of 25 or 30,000 people, again, from outside as well as inside the city. So I think those are the kinds of the general stereotypes that probably impact a lot of communities, how they're viewed. But when you live here and you experience it and you take advantage of the things to do in the city and the surrounding area, because we are in central Connecticut. We're an hour and 15 minutes from, I like to say, Yankee Stadium. And if you're a Red Sox fan, you're about an hour and 20 minutes from Fenway Park, which literally means you're also that far or that close to all the various cultural accessibilities of New York and Boston, and you don't have to live there. So it's really a remarkable location from that standpoint. We're 40 minutes from the ocean. We're several hours from the Cape. If you want wilderness, you travel 6 or 7 hours north to Maine and Vermont and New Hampshire, and you can do wilderness, take waterways, the various possibilities for camping and skiing in the wintertime, and you can still come back to Connecticut. So I think it's a very unique location and proximity to a lot of things that the greater New England area have to afford. The three most interesting places. Well, I think the first and foremost would probably be the Art Museum, just simply because it's the oldest museum in the United States strictly devoted to American art. Right now, there's a Georgia O'Keeffe exhibit that's with 62 exhibits that are being shown at the museum now. I think our parks are very something to be able to visit. I think that by very nature, we have walk areas within the parks. The Walnut Hill Park, which is located in the central part of the city, was created by the same Olmsted who actually created Central Park in New York City. So our parks are really something worthwhile to see. And again, the collective options for the eateries in the city. Little Poland is by itself a destination point. It has over 162 businesses just on its one stretch of Broad Street. I mentioned the festival earlier. We have a golf course. We didn't mention that since I badly play golf. But we have a Stanley Golf Course, municipal golf course, which is a 27-hole golf course. Not many cities can say they have a golf course or 27 holes from that standpoint. It's a beautiful course. It actually earned the best public course in the state of Connecticut several years ago. So those are just two or three of the things. How can I forget Central Connecticut State University, which between art exhibits and theater and music opportunities, it's the second largest public university in the state of Connecticut, the first being the University of Connecticut. It has over 14,000 students. So we have a hub of intellectual and academic opportunities within the city as well. And I could go on. There are just so many other examples. We have the Bees, which used to be the Rockcats, which was at that time a AA team, but you don't want me to talk about the Rockcats and how they moved to Hartford and how that all happened. But because of the park there, which is Willowbrook Park, the Veterans Stadium holds 10,000 people. There are many activities that happen there, everything from Hindu celebration events to in Indian celebration events to soccer. World-class soccer comes and plays there very often. We've had Bob Dylan here in the same stadium as John Mellencamp, the same as a number of other stars over the period of time that they come in and they've played actually in our community. So, I mean, there's a lot going on in the city, and it's quick access off the highways, and you can be there, and I could just start naming everything from hot dogs to pasta in terms of the food opportunities, or pierogies in the city of New Britain. So there's a lot to be proud of, and also to access here in the city. Yeah, well, it's shame on the author of that, whoever he or she was. Obviously, semi-illiterate. If you want me to, lambast some kind of situation, it's poorly produced. It, starts with all kinds of graffiti in impositions and inferences. I mean, it's just silly. They haven't lived in New Britain. They haven't seen the city. They haven't gone through the education system. I mentioned my daughters and all the success stories. I mean, we have graduates who are the backstage managers for the Metropolitan Opera. People who become superintendent of schools and across the country, celebrities, writers. I mean, we can go on and on. We forget about people like Abraham Ribicoff, who became governor and United States senator and served for the old health and education and welfare under the Kennedy administration. I mean, we can just go on with the kind of folks who were born and raised and moved on very often, maybe didn't always stay here, but who were really byproducts of the community. So that's really honestly a silly and disingenuous little piece to try to explain a population of 73,000 diverse Americans, who have tremendous pride in their community. The 1 out of 33 in terms of a violent crime is, I want to see the data. I want to see the location. That's ludicrous. I mean, we can't even compare without being disingenuous to other cities in the state. If you take murders as an example, if we have 1 or 2 domestic violence related incidents, a homicide a year, we're lucky. I can point to any other city in the state and show they have 6, 7, 8, 10, 15, 20 times more of that kind of violent crime. So it's just whoever did that needs to go back to the drawing board, and if they're in journalists, they need to get out of journalism. Well, I just think that the city needs to be given a second chance about some of the perspectives. It's like anything else. If you don't visit it, you don't see it, you don't know it. The criticism might even come internally or from people who expect government to heal all their wounds and take care of all the problems. But we have to address problems. That's part of what government does. When there's a problem, you fix it. And I think that's something that we have done with this administration now. We're going on over 6 years, almost 6 years, to try to improve the city further. Economic development is an area that we promote. Small businesses and manufacturing industry has increased tremendously over the last 5 or 6 years. We have a bond rating that's the A+ bond rating because we've learned to do the restructuring that's necessary and manage our money here and our operations throughout the city. So I laugh heartily at the idea that if you haven't been here, you haven't visited, you don't know. And when you do come here, it's the proximity to everything else as well. Residential, it's cheaper to live here in the city of New Britain, probably anywhere else in the state of Connecticut. And I say that both in terms of apartment complexes and accessibility, interstate accessibility, the fast track, which runs into Hartford, which is the only true, except for Amtrak, any form of mass transit that the state of Connecticut has evolved and developed over the course of the last 20 or 30 years. So, I mean, that's You know, we really believe in this community, and the people who stay here and work here and play here seem to be relatively happy from what I can tell.